In the back of this building, when I was 16 years old, I hung myself. And while I was hanging, before the guards pulled me down, I had a dream. And in that dream, God came to me. And He gave me my commandment. And it was in the back of this building, in a tiny cell bathroom, that I was reborn. Miles Michael Folsom. The dream I had while I was hanging was me standing next to a man with a face too bright to see. And at first there were no words to the dream. It was sort of suffering in silence. But I stood there at the head of my driveway, looking down it towards the street. And he stood next to me, onto my right. I looked up at him, and his face, just a light. He looked down at me, and then as he looked back towards the road, slowly cast his arm forward and pointed. And as I looked, the driveway, it grew in the distance. It disappeared into the horizon, and it winded. And he said, "If you do nothing, you become nothing." That was the commandment that God had given me. I came back to life in that jail cell. The noose was taken from around my neck. I was taken to my sentencing hearing within the week. Facing 60 years, I was given 36 in that courtroom right there. And within the same week, I was sent to prison. A 16-year-old man with a 36-year sentence. For the longest time, I didn't know that that's what God had said to me in that dream. I knew that something had been said, but it was just the weight of silence that hung on my memory. But the words, they guided me. They became a part of my life. I knew them, I spoke them, but I didn't know where they'd come from. People would ask me, "Oh, Miles, where'd you hear that? Where'd you read that?" And I didn't know. But the words, "If you do nothing, you become nothing," they became my way of life. And they created the man who I was. And they set the path for the man who I would become. It wasn't until I was in another prison years and years later, Westville Correctional Facility, while in the middle of pursuing John Milton's hidden message, I war with Thoth. Exhausted from a day's journey through these textbooks, I lay there in my cell, just trying to clear my head, thinking of all things, of infinity. Infinity, the concept, infinity. Just trying to wrap my head around it. And as my mind sat there in space, suddenly like a lightning bolt, I was hit with the remembrance that those were the words that God had said to me. And suddenly it all made sense. Suddenly I knew why those words had stuck with me from the very beginning. I knew why every time I said it, people were taken aback. And when I was filmed for a documentary in prison at 17, I said those words on the documentary: if you do nothing, you become nothing. And I remember the directors, the filmmakers, being taken aback by them as well, wondering where I had got them. And when that documentary aired all around the world, and people reached out to me, loving people, they all heard me say it. They all heard me say the Word of God. And they wrote to me to love me because they knew, like I did, that there was something special in that phrase. They heard through me, through my pain, underneath all the desperation. And the world loved me back to health. That was the commandment that I have fulfilled. May my aim be as true to the mark as the mark is to my aim. I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?" Then said I, "Here am I, send me." Lest we forget.